if you feel God is really pulling on you to just slow down a little bit, it doesn't mean stop. Slowing down doesn't mean stop. It just means trying to find a new sustainable pace where you can really do everything you feel God has called you to do at this time and do it well.
Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Hi there. Welcome to the show. You are listening to episode number 140, and I am so glad you're here. Are you ready to shift into a slower gear? Summer is naturally a time to live at a slower pace. School's out, you probably have fewer activities on your calendar, and you might even have extra time off work. Let's take advantage of this season and create some intentional rhythms that allow us to slow down and connect with God and with people. My friend Jodi Grubbs is on the show today, gently guiding us into slower living and sharing some practices to help us be unhurried. Jodi is the podcast host of Our Island in the City and a slow living advocate. She's the author of a children's book, The Island Adventures of Lili and Oliver, and she's the co-author of the Bible study, The Friendship Café. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know about the GTL newsletter, my personal email to you. It's where you'll find the details about the show, free goodies and giveaways, and it's the only place to see the favorite 5 of all my guests, including links to the things they love. This week, one lucky subscriber will win a copy of Jodi's book, Slow Living, a gentle invitation to exhale. So, if you don't already get the GTL newsletter, now is the time to get signed up. You can find the link in the show notes. Here's my conversation with Jodi. Jodi Grubbs, thank you so much for coming on Girls Talking Life.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here to have this conversation with you today. What an honor.
I would love to know a little bit more about you. You are a slow living advocate. That is the one thing I do know. So explain to me, in addition to details about you, what exactly that means to live slowly.
Sure. So I coined slow living advocate just because I have this love for slowing down and helping others slow down when they need to. And I had people coming to me for help and asking me things. And I found like I was advocating for them, like giving them permission to slow down, although no one needs permission actually. So that's where that phrase came from. And it's just sort of like a guide, someone who can guide you into a different, more sustainable pace. So that's what I do is I help people with that, sometimes behind the scenes, one-on-one. And that led me to write my book, Live Slowly. So I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a podcaster as well. I'm on sabbatical for a year, but I've enjoyed doing that and writing and going to coffee with friends. That's one of my favorite things, community.
I love that too.
Yeah.
So when we talk about slow living, is this just an external thing? Is it with our schedules and our bodies, or is there an internal piece of it too?
Yeah, good question. So it really is internal and external. I've got 18 slow living practices in my book. There are more shifts. So, we don't have to make this hard pivot to slowing down. Sometimes we're in seasons where we can't. So we have to say no to things so we can keep doing the things that we're obligated to do right now. But it's not just, taking a nap or quieting down for a little bit. It is also just being present with other people and then being present with God and present with ourselves. So there's a lot of internal work that goes along with what we would normally see as self-help or self-care, things like that. There's a lot of soul care that's infused with that to balance it out. Yeah.
You mentioned connecting with God and with other people, and that's what Girls Talking Life is all about. But Jodi, relationships are not efficient. Can you speak to slowing down in order to make those two types of connections?
Sure. So I found that sometimes God has people right in front of me and I might not see them. So it's been a process of me honoring other people, their presence, and honoring who God has put in my life. So several years ago, I asked God just to pick my friends for me because he knows my heart so well. He knows what I need from other people. He knows what I can give other people. And so that has never steered me wrong. And there's times when I've gone after friendships, maybe for the wrong reasons. You know, someone might seem like super fun and crazy and, you know, girls' night out, but it wasn't really maybe meant to be, or just not a good season for either one of us. And so I've had to just step back and say, okay, God, who do you want in my life and when and for how long? That's been so hard for me, is the length. Sometimes friendships are short, sometimes they're really long. But just being able to be present with people, I'm finding is the biggest thing of all. And it is part of slowing down, but it's also just part of community. If we are so busy that we can't really see each other and really hear each other, a friendship can't really grow. So, you know, to me, that's just one of the biggest things is being present with people.
You have a soul care practice in one of the chapters of your book, and you talk about something called spiritual friendship. What is that all about?
Yeah. So what I'm finding is I'm one of these people. I'm an introvert. I love one-on-one conversation. But if somehow we're not talking about the hard things, or we're not bringing God into the conversation, I'm finding it's not always sustainable. So small talk just doesn't get us real far.
Yeah, agreed.
It's fun at times. It can be safe at times. But spiritual friendship is probably going a little bit deeper and being willing to walk with that person through some hard spiritual formation that they're going through. You know, God is working on all of us constantly, and he's always chasing after us. He's always right there. So being aware of that in our lives and having people be able to speak into that, and then being aware of that in other people's lives, those are the friendships that I've seen have not just blossomed, but they've gotten super deep, and there's been some roots. And when we have hard times, we really need to be rooted. And I think God shows us his love through these people and these spiritual friendships. Yeah.
Before we hit record, you and I were talking about, you have a mastermind group and I do too. And just, you know, purposely putting that together, being intentional, and really God was the one who put it together. And then just deep diving with this small group of women has been so impactful for me. And I think you feel the same way.
I sure do. I sure do. It's a time when you can be vulnerable. You know, it's a group of safe women. They've gotten to know you, so they feel like they can speak back into something and maybe remind you of who you are and, you know, what God is doing in your life and the bigger picture. So it's really special. It's not something that comes around all the time though. So I think I cherish it because I'm realizing over time how special it is. Yeah.
Okay. Back to slow living.
Okay.
I thought that this would be a perfect time to have this conversation because we are moving into summer, and I feel like summer has a natural feeling of slowness. So how can we create some rhythms right now that we can practice throughout the summer and then take into the rest of the year with us?
Yeah. And I love that you said the word rhythms, because that gives a little bit of a freedom, kind of this ebb and flow. I find that people are a little more hesitant to want to slow down if they think it has to be rigid or rules. So yeah, one thing that I've realized is awakening to beauty is a huge thing for me now. Just seeing nature just unfold in front of me. There's so much green foliage out now.
Yes.
And, you know, we have more opportunities maybe to be near the water, take a day trip somewhere. So one of those rhythms that I think is sustainable for the summer is just awakening ourselves to beauty. And that means slowing down, slow down and take a picture of that flower on your walk. You don't have to fly by. So that's one. Lingering with intention is another rhythm. We're all in such a hurry, and it's like, is it really important to just get to the next thing? So I think when we linger, and that can be 2 minutes or 20 minutes, it doesn't mean 2 hours necessarily, but when we linger with intention, it's a rhythm that allows our heart and our mind to slow down and keep pace with maybe what God is trying to show us right now, something that might be right in front of us. So those are two. Another that's really big, and this might not be as feel good as the first two, but it's just understanding your capacity. So all of us are in a different place with what we can handle right now with our energy or our health or our finances or, just emotionally. And so being really sensitive to that and not overcommitting gives us a chance to enjoy the summer and not dread the summer. Yes. So I've seen on social media, a lot of people are saying, we're only doing 2 things this summer. And, that's not boring. That's amazing. Like that is going to be restful. And then you have white space on your calendar. So when something really special comes up, you can say yes, right?
That's wonderful. Yeah. We are taking a trip this summer, and it's because my husband really wanted to go, but I was kind of like, I would be completely content just to stay home because traveling, I feel like, makes the time speed up. So I was just like, I will go because that's what you want to do. But I would be content just to sit here in the slowness with less on my calendar.
Yep. And you can even practice that when you're on the trip, have little pockets where you just slow down. And I know it's so hard to not, I'm a people pleaser. So if I go somewhere with people, they want to go, I might have to just speak up and say, you know what, I'm going to sit on this bench and I'm just going to watch, whatever it is, look at the flowers, and I'll, y'all come back. When you come back around, I'll jump up and we'll keep going.
That is a great point. Yes, I can be slow in the midst of everyone else's hurry if I choose to.
Yes, I had that happen to me in New York City last summer. New York City is very busy, but for 20 minutes we went inside a cathedral, and it was just like stepping back in time as my soul care sanctuary. And that gave me a lot of energy for the rest of that day and the walking we had to do. Yeah.
You talked about beauty, and in your book, you mentioned finding your own sanctuary. And I think for me, especially in summer, it is my backyard, my patio. I try to make it comfortable, and we have some trees behind our house, and you can hear all the sounds of nature. And that is really where I plan to do a lot of slow living this summer.
I love that. I'm resonating with that because I'm out on my back patio a lot right now. And my daughter just put up the little twinkle fairy lights last night. And nice. So we just sat there and just enjoyed the ambiance. Yeah, that's great.
Do you have any other practices for us for summer?
Well, I would say acceptance is one. It's one I'm having to practice right now. So maybe that's why it's on the front of my mind. But acceptance with where you're at right now. Sometimes we have expectations and things don't turn out that way. And so we have to, part of slowing down is just accepting where we're at. So for instance, if someone was in an accident and their leg is in a brace or a boot this summer, that is not what they were hoping for. But there's a lot of beauty in just the stillness with God. So I tell people, like, when we talk about loneliness, solitary times don't have to be lonely. If you have been alone but not lonely, then that's solitude right there. And so I guess I'm combining two, solitude and acceptance. But I think many of us will have times that we are caught off guard this summer if, someone gets sick and it derails a week of your summer. So I think just acceptance of the place that you're at, just being open to maybe what else can happen during that time. A lot of growth happens in the stillness, so not to be afraid of it.
I love the idea of it, and I want to move into slowness, but it's really a rhythm that we see practiced in the Bible. Can you talk about what Jesus models in this slowness for us?
Yeah, that's what was so fascinating to me is I've heard about it all my life and I've read it. But when I was reading this book, it's like, oh my word, Jesus, he walked everywhere. His ministry was in a small area. It was other disciples and people that went to other places. And so if he walked everywhere, I think that gives time for conversation with people. It gives time to see the beauty in your surroundings. It gives time, just to process and have people approach you. So Jesus was approachable in the slowing down. And then just, it started out with Adam and Eve walking in the garden with God. And I think if we could maybe go back to something like that, even if it's just in our minds and in our hearts, that's what I think of. Those are just two examples, but even all the meals that Jesus shared with people.
Yeah, the Bible talks about them reclining at the table. And I'm thinking, wow, they really took their time. It wasn't, how fast can everybody eat and get on with the dishes? It was
true.
A slow pace.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because now that I'm talking more about this and I read those types of things, it's like, oh, it just makes me pause, and think, oh, that's right. Jesus was not in a hurry.
Girls Talking Life is all about cultivating community and creating meaningful connections. In pursuit of that mission, I am launching Girls Talking Life Groups. It's like a book club, but for the podcast. You listen to an episode and then get together with friends to discuss, reflect, and apply it to your life. I have created reflection guides for some of the series and standalone episodes, so the work has been done for you. You just listen and discuss. The Girls Talking Life podcast and guides were recently approved by my local church to be used as small group curriculum, and now you can use them for your small group too. And if you don't have a small group, start one. Grab the Girls Talking Life Group Quick Start Guide. I outline a couple of simple steps, answer a few questions you may have, and tell you exactly how I'd start if I were starting a group. Because I am. I'm hosting a group this summer at my house, and I encourage you to do the same. Find the link for the Girls Talking Life Group Quick Start Guide in the show notes. All right, we mentioned sanctuary, and you talk about having a sanctuary. What does that mean, and how can we find one for ourselves?
Yeah. So I use the word soul care sanctuary, and I use the word our island in the city, but really it's just a place where you feel safe and quiet with your thoughts or with God. It's just a place where you can almost escape to if you need to. And that could be really tangible. I've found places I can go back to in my mind, like a really pretty beach setting. Maybe I've had to go there during an MRI, to go back to a sanctuary. Sanctuary means, a safe place. And so if we keep stillness and safety sort of at the top of our mind when we're looking for a physical place or a place in our mind, it gives us so much freedom to just pause and reflect and be present with sometimes things that are hard to think about when we're too busy.
So I'm hoping that we incorporate some of these into our summer and even practice them throughout the summer. But then when we move into fall, Jodi, things pick up and it can be hard. I mean, our culture is fast paced and there's a lot that will be kind of added to our calendars. And I would love to hear some ways and some steps that we could fight against that, against, the cultural norm of hurry.
Yeah. Well, fall was when I kept learning my lesson over and over again that I had to slow down. That was when I would get sick. I would get pneumonia, bronchitis, strep, and just be out for, weeks and weeks. And it happened all the time. And so it was actually my doctor at the time who said, Jodi, you've got to slow down. Like your body's saying, no, you're overdoing it. You're running the roads. It's just not how you were made to live. And she's like, you just need to pace yourself better and say no. And so my big advice is just saying no this fall. We can't make ourselves do more than our bodies and our minds can do, or there'll be ramifications. And so a lot of people don't think about this until they get really sick or they're completely burnt out, or something happens. And so I think if we can be more proactive and look for that white space on the calendar, it's really important. It doesn't have to look, you can look at it instead of thinking, oh, I need to fill it. Just think, let me replenish during this time, because even my friends who are extroverts or type A's, they have to slow down and replenish to keep being who they really are.
Yeah.
And doing all the things that they're doing. Yeah. So I think it's kind of maybe a myth when people think, well, we just can't slow down. Everything will stop. We are needed in life, but not as much as we would like to think. The world still can keep going and we can still stay at a healthy pace so that we can keep going into the winter months too. Yeah.
You share about a morning and an evening routine, and I would love for you to just walk us through one of those.
Yeah, I was actually sharing with a friend about it yesterday. One of the routines that I do, so I use a book by Pete Scazzaro. He writes about emotional, healthy spirituality, and he has something called the Daily Office. And I keep going back to that every few months. It's 40 days, but it's a little reading in the morning and then again in the afternoon or evening. And that is one of the spiritual practices that has sort of, I want to say, grounded me. It makes me stop. You have to be still for 2 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is at the beginning and at the end. And then you read a scripture, you can read it a few times, and there's a devotional and a prayer. And I find that having that to go back to, sort of like the word rhythm that you used earlier, these are so important to keep us tethered to God. It's hard to feel held by God if we're not intentionally spending time with him like we would spend with a friend or somebody who we really want to be part of our life. So that's my biggest one right now. It's pretty easy.
I love that one. It does sound easy and also like a great place to start. Maybe even taking that pause, if possible, in your sanctuary.
Yes, some people it takes them 15, 20 minutes. Other people it takes them 6 to 8 minutes. It's a very small practice, already written out for you, literally. But it makes it so much more meaningful when I just relax on my back porch and do that. Yeah.
Right, there is purpose behind it.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, Jodi, I ask all my guests this question. I would love to know what your favorite 5 are. What are 5 things you are reading or watching or doing right now that are just your favorite things?
Yes. Oh gosh, there are so many things right now. So this is so funny, but one of my favorite things I keep doing is making an English muffin or bagel with cream cheese and red pepper jelly on it. Oh. I don't know what's going on, but that little zing.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's really good. So that's my tip for that. And then also just walking through the plants section of a grocery store, instead of just zooming in and out to get a couple things, I find that it's just enough time for me to say, oh, look at that pretty little flower, or look at that color, or that bud. And whether it's outside the grocery store or whether it's in their flower section. So I highly recommend that.
That's so funny. I shop at Trader Joe's and their flower section is right inside the door and it is always packed with people. So I'm like, get me through here.
Yeah.
I never take time there, but Maybe this week I will.
Yes, that is the number one place to get peonies. Yeah. Another thing is trying different coffee creamers. I'm a big coffee person, even with my decaf. And so it's been so fun to go to the specialty section in the grocery store and see what is a special edition. So right now it's pistachio, and it reminds me of the pistachio ice cream my dad and I would go get on our bikes when I was a little girl.
My friend got a pistachio latte, I think it was, when I saw her on Friday, and I was like, I don't even know what that would taste like.
Oh, I have had one, and it was so good. I just wish I could find it more.
Interesting. I will have to try it.
Yeah. A book I am reading right now, my friend Kathy Izzard wrote a book, and it's called Trust the Whisper. And I just finished it last night. Cannot recommend it highly enough. It comes out very, very soon. But it's really about listening for the whisper that God is telling us, whether it's about a vocation or a dream or maybe helping somebody else. So her book is full of stories of mostly women, some men, but really listening to that whisper. And some people have opened, shelters for people with houselessness. That's what they talk about a lot in the book, and just different dreams that people have had. And the crazy thing is there's been connections with these people all over the place. It's like this big web, sort of like the Matrix. We don't understand how connected we really are in God's big story. So highly recommend that as a read.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. And then the last thing I guess I'll just say is those twinkle lights for your back patio. You can get them on Amazon for, I think it's like $6 or $7. And it really helps awakening the beauty, one of the rhythms that I love. So that's a new thing right now. Yeah.
I have some in my shopping cart right now.
Yay. I love that. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those with us. Those were so good. Jodi, what is your final word of encouragement for us as we hope to slow down?
Well, the biggest thing I would love to encourage your listeners is just be open hands. I have had to do this, that little open hands emoji sign in the last 2 years, and even more so in the last few weeks. So just being open to maybe a new pace, or if you feel God is really pulling on you to just slow down a little bit. It doesn't mean stop. Slowing down doesn't mean stop. It just means trying to find a new sustainable pace where you can really do everything you feel God has called you to do at this time and do it well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Johanna.
Yeah, that is so good. I have loved getting to know you a little bit better, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I am so glad that you listened to your doctor all those years ago, and you have taken steps and written beautiful words to encourage us to slow down and exhale and experience more of God.
Thank you. That is so kind. I have enjoyed talking with you today and just getting to know you on social media over the years. So thank you for what you do. It's really important.
Thanks for listening. I love how Jodi said that she asks God to pick her friends. Of course, He knows best and wants to guide us to the people we need and who need us. Jodi gave us lots of ideas, small things we can incorporate into our days to slow things down. Did one of them stand out to you? I practiced awakening to beauty. I paused in the flower section of Trader Joe's last week, and I saw and enjoyed the beautiful pink peonies. What about your soul care sanctuary? When Jodi was describing it, what came to mind for you? All the ways to connect with Jodi are in the show notes for this episode, and you can find all 18 of her slow living practices in her book, Slow Living. And also tune into her podcast, Our Island in the City. If you're not already a GTL newsletter subscriber, sign up now for a chance to win the copy of her book that I'll give away later this week. And you can also use code IVPPOD20 for 20% off plus free shipping at ivppress.com. That is IVPPOD20. Let's be women who live slow enough to be present with God and with others. Friend, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share this episode and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. In an effort to live slowly, this summer I'm going to take a few weeks off in July. I'll re-release a popular episode from 2023 in a couple of weeks, and then I'll be back at the end of the month with an all-new episode. Thanks for tuning in.